There's this weird moment that a lot of people have, usually late at night. The room's quiet, your phone is way too bright, and you're lying there, half scrolling, half thinking, maybe checking your bank app even though you already checked it earlier that day. And the number is fine. Not terrible, not great, just kind of sitting there. You're not broke, bills are paid, rent's covered, food's in the fridge, because you've been working, you've been trying. Maybe you even cut back on some stuff, fewer takeout orders, a little less impulse shopping. You told yourself you'd finally get serious about saving. And yet, when you look at that savings balance, it's like it's stuck. It crawls, it inches, it never quite jumps. And that's usually when people start to feel this quiet frustration. Not dramatic, not a breakdown, just this low-level financial tiredness. Like, am I doing something wrong? Honestly, I spend way too much time thinking about money and the psychology behind it. Why some people seem to hit these financial milestones and suddenly things get easier, while other people grind for years and feel like they're on a treadmill that never speeds up. And the more I've thought about it, the more I've realized something kind of uncomfortable, but also kind of freeing. The first $10,000 is not just a number, it's a wall. It's a psychological wall. It's a behavioral wall. It's an emotional wall. And getting over it feels harder than it logically should. But here's the thing most people don't realize. Once you understand why it's so hard, it stops feeling like a personal failure. It starts feeling like a system you can actually learn to work with. And that shift alone, just understanding what's really going on, can completely change how you move, how you save, how you think, and how you stop beating yourself up for something that's actually incredibly common. This is probably the most honest conversation you're going to hear about it.
Let's start with something nobody talks about enough. Money has gravity. Not literal gravity, obviously, but when you're near zero or just a little above it, every single dollar feels heavier. It has more emotional weight. It has more responsibility attached to it. It's emergency rent, it's car repair, it's medical bill. That money is already mentally spent before it ever gets to grow. So you're trying to save, but you're also using that same pile of money as a psychological safety net, which means it never really gets to just be savings. It's more like a buffer that constantly gets tapped. Here's what that looks like in real life. You finally save up $800. You feel proud for like 2 days. Then your car makes a weird noise, or your phone screen cracks, or some random expense shows up that you didn't plan for, and suddenly half of it is gone. And you tell yourself, see? But what's actually happening is you're still living in what I call survival mode finances. Your money isn't growing, it's defending you. It's playing goalie, not offense. Why this matters is simple. When money is in defense mode, it can't compound, it can't create momentum, it can't give you that feeling of forward motion. It's just trying to keep you from going backward. Actionable takeaway here: before you even think about investing or big strategies, your first real win is creating a buffer that stops emergencies from eating your savings. Even a small separate oops fund, like $500 to $1,000, can change how the rest of your money behaves. It gives your actual savings a chance to stop being attacked constantly. Let's be honest about something that feels a little uncomfortable. You can only save what you don't need to live. And for a lot of people, that margin is tiny. Like painfully tiny. And sure, budgeting helps, but there's a hard ceiling when your income and your basic expenses are too close together. You can be disciplined, you can be organized.
You can track every dollar. But if there's only $100 left at the end of the month, then guess what? The maximum speed you can move is $100 a month. That means $10,000 isn't just a goal. It's 100 months over 8 years. That's why the first $10,000 feels brutal. It exposes income reality. It forces you to confront whether you actually have enough margin to build wealth, not in theory, but in practice. Why this matters is because effort alone doesn't always solve a math problem. That can mean negotiating pay, changing jobs, adding a side income, learning a skill that raises your earning power. It's not glamorous, it's uncomfortable, but it's often the hidden lever that finally makes progress feel real instead of painfully slow. Actionable takeaway: if your savings rate feels stuck no matter how disciplined you are, don't just optimize spending, audit income.
Even a small bump can completely change your timeline. This one is sneaky. When you save $100, it should feel good. Logically, it's progress, but emotionally, it doesn't move the needle. Your life doesn't look different. Your stress doesn't vanish. You still worry. Humans are wired to respond to visible change. If you lose 1 pound, you can't see it. If you save $200, you can't feel it. Your brain wants a before and after. And because the first few $1,000s don't dramatically change your life, they don't give you that dopamine hit, which makes it harder to stay motivated. It's like pushing a heavy car. At first, you're straining. Nothing happens. You're sweating. But once it starts rolling, even a little, it gets easier to keep it moving. The first $10,000 is you pushing the car, quietly and visibly. Why this matters is because motivation often comes after momentum, not before it. People think they need to feel inspired to save. In reality, you usually need to see progress to feel inspired, and that progress only becomes obvious later.
Actionable takeaway. Track percentage progress, not just dollar amounts. 5K, 5K. Make invisible progress visible so your brain gets the signal that something is happening. Here's a brutally honest pattern. As people earn more, their life quietly expands to match it. Better phone, slightly nicer apartment, more eating out, more subscriptions, a little more convenience. None of it feels reckless. It feels earned. It feels deserved. And honestly, a lot of it is. But the problem is this. If your lifestyle grows at the same pace as your income, your savings rate stays the same. This is why people making double what they used to still feel broke. The container got bigger, but the leftover didn't. Why this matters is because wealth isn't built on income alone. It's built on the gap between income and lifestyle. That gap is where savings lives. That gap is where momentum lives. Actionable takeaway. Every time your income increases, decide in advance where part of that raise goes. Automate savings increases so lifestyle creep doesn't quietly steal your progress. This part doesn't get talked about enough, and it's heavy. When money is tight, it's not just numbers. It's emotional. It's stress. It's decision fatigue. It's always having a low-level anxiety running in the background of your life. You think about money when you wake up. You think about it before you go to sleep. You think about it when something breaks. You think about it when someone invites you out. That mental load is exhausting, and exhaustion makes long-term planning harder. So when people say, just be patient, just be disciplined, they ignore the fact that financial stress literally taxes your brain. It makes you more likely to choose short-term relief over long-term gain. Why this matters is because if you're struggling to save, it's not just a willpower problem. It's often a bandwidth problem. Actionable takeaway: reduce friction, automate savings, simplify bills. Remove decision points where possible. Protect your mental energy so you can actually stick to your plan. There's something magical about having a 5-figure cushion. Not because it makes you rich, it doesn't, but because it changes how you feel. At $10,000, a lot of emergencies stop feeling like disasters. They become inconveniences. That alone lowers stress, and when stress drops, your ability to think long-term improves. You start making decisions from a calmer place. You start taking smarter risks. You stop feeling like every mistake will ruin you. They're not talking about the math. They're talking about the psychology. Why this matters? The first $10,000 doesn't just change your bank account, it changes your relationship with money. Actionable takeaway: treat $10,000 as a stability milestone, not a wealth milestone. Its main job is to buy you peace of mind and better decision-making. People hear about compounding and imagine magic, but compounding is boring at the beginning, painfully boring. Your first few $1,000s barely earn anything. It's not exciting. It's not motivating. It feels pointless. But compounding is a curve. It's slow, 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 then suddenly noticeable. The problem is, most people quit before the curve bends. They never stick around long enough to feel the magic part. Why this matters? The first $10,000 is when you're still in the flat part of the curve. You're doing all the work for very little visible reward. Actionable takeaway: don't judge the power of compounding by the first few years. Judge it by what it does over decades. The boring phase is the price of entry.
This is subtle but powerful. At first, you're someone who is trying to save. That means it's fragile, it's optional, it's something you can fall off. After a while, if you stick with it, it becomes part of your identity. You're just someone who saves. You don't debate it every month. It's automatic.
That identity shift usually happens somewhere around real milestones, like that first 10K. Why this matters, identity-based habits are way stronger than motivation-based habits. Actionable takeaway: talk to yourself differently. It sounds small, it's not. If you've made it this far, here's what I really want you to hear. If getting to your first $10,000 feels slow, frustrating, and way harder than it seems like it should be, you're not broken, you're not lazy, you're not bad with money. You're doing one of the hardest parts of the entire journey. You're pushing the car. You're in the flat part of the curve. You're building the buffer. You're carrying the emotional weight. And none of that looks impressive from the outside. Nobody claps for it. Nobody sees it. It's quiet work. It's invisible work, but it's real. The first $10,000 is hard because it's where survival turns into stability. It's where chaos turns into control. It's where stress starts to loosen its grip just enough for you to breathe differently. Once you cross that line, things don't magically become easy, but they become easier. Decisions get calmer, mistakes hurt less, progress starts to feel more real. So if you're in that early stage right now, counting small wins, rebuilding after setbacks, watching your balance crawl instead of sprint, just know this: you're not behind. You're in the hardest part on purpose. And every boring deposit, every small sacrifice, every month you stick with it when it feels pointless, that's you building momentum that future you is going to feel in ways you can't yet. Not hype, not fantasy, just quiet, steady, real progress. And honestly, that's how almost every real financial story starts.